Are we on America's last legs? Can Donald Trump win the White House in 2024? And if he wins the White House, can he save America? And what about Fox News? What's taking place there? What's going on? These are all the topics of today's Bold and Blunt. And I'm your host, Cheryl Chumley, giving you a Christian conservative look at today's news, politics, culture, and events. Donald Trump, his poll numbers continue to grow, and it is driving Democrats crazy, right? They can't figure it out. Why Democrats cry at night? You know they do. You know they lay in bed at night, unable to sleep, pondering, mulling, agonizing over the fact that Donald Trump served in the White House in the first place, and that the first impeachment didn't have effect of stopping him. The second impeachment didn't have an effect of stopping him. My gosh, the guy's running for president again. What happened to Russia collusion? What happened to Russia collusion? 3 years of it. And now they're going after Donald Trump. January 6th is still an issue, and there's something going on, down in Georgia, up in New York? Who knows, right? The fact is, the more the left attacks, is that the right word? The more the left attacks. Yes. The more the left attacks, the higher Donald Trump's poll numbers go. It's amazing, isn't it? Why can't the Democrats get it through their minds? And not just the Democrats, let's be real here. It's many in the Republican Party as well who hate Donald Trump. But why can't these anti-Trumpers understand why Americans, patriotic Americans that is, love Donald Trump? What is it? They focus on things like, well, he says mean things, and once upon a time he cussed, and oh my gosh, when he had a Twitter feed, did you see his Twitter feed? It was filled with horrible things. It hurt my feelings. They can't understand how someone like that can adequately represent the will of the American people. They don't get him. They don't get him, and they never will. And the ones who do get him are so scared by him that they have to do everything they can to fight against him. The ones that do get Donald Trump are the globalists, right? These are the people that understand fully what Donald Trump represents. China, the World Economic Forum, the globalists in the Democrat and Republican Party, the United Nations, the World Health Organization, Bill Gates, Anthony Fauci, Hillary Clinton. All these people get Donald Trump. They really do. They come out and they attack him, and they call him a clown and a circus act, and they pretend like, what? We can't understand why someone so ridiculous could be chosen by the American people. Or if you're Hillary's people, you just can't understand that he actually won in 2016. You're still busy throwing down the gender card and so forth, and going into the woods and drinking wine, going on alcohol benders for a few days. But the fact is, they really do get him. They understand why America loves Donald Trump, and they fear it, because here's what it is. Donald Trump loves America, and he's not ashamed of it. He's not ashamed to fight for America. You know, other politicians can oh so easily be bought and sold and watered down and compromised, and hey, you do this for me, I'll do that for you, one hand washes the other, so forth and so on. And Donald Trump, though, when he was in the White House, he did what he promised on the campaign trail in terms of America first. It wasn't just a bumper sticker to him. It was an actual guiding moral compass. He did much of that. He slapped back the faces of the anti-American globalists, right? He went on the stages and the platforms during these world government heads of states meetings, and he elbowed his way to the front. When they all tried to block him out of the picture, he just pushed them to the side and got out front, where America belongs, by the way. And he did it boldly and unashamedly. And when he was called out for being rude or uncouth or, offensive, you know what? So what? He shrugged it off, or maybe he slapped back with something even more offensive or uncouth or so-called deemed rude. But this is why Americans loved him, for the same reason real Americans loved George Patton, right? Don't play the bull crap. take no prisoners. It's all about the final end game. Make America great. Just like Patton, right? Didn't care about the politics, didn't care about working with this party or working with that evil party, just wanted to win for America, take down the enemies. Donald Trump, same. And he sees the enemies in the right mindset of pro-America, for America. He sees the enemies as the globalists who hate America. So it's not that maybe the left doesn't understand Donald Trump. There's a lot on the left. There are a lot on the left who don't get it. They point to his social media platform, and they point to something he said 20 years ago off the cuff to a reporter, or they point to some gesture he made, or they point to some out of context quote where they can slam him as being racist or misogynist or so forth. They point to that and they say, oh, he's a clown, he's a circus act, he doesn't belong. So they're the low information, no information voters who just want a government to exist in order to provide from cradle to grave, right? Those are the exploiters, the do-nothings, the ones who would just as soon sit at home and play video games in mommy's basement than go to work and earn a living. These are the people in America that, they're the dregs of society. They maybe don't understand why Americans love Donald Trump, because they don't understand anything. They don't think about anything. They're kind of like animals, just fueled by emotion, fueled by impulse. Oh, all the Democrats have to do is dangle this entitlement. Oh, food stamps, we love you. We go over there. And then here comes that Democrat or socialist or whatever, dangling free college. Oh, we love you now. That's how they operate. That's how they live. But by and large, the leadership, the ones in control, the ones in power on the left, all too fully understand why Americans love Donald Trump. And that makes them scared beep less, right? It does. It scares the living beep out of them. And so they have to do whatever it takes in order to keep Donald Trump from running for the White House again. Well, guess what? Fail, epic fail, big fail. He's running. So now they have to do whatever it takes to ensure that Donald Trump doesn't win the White House again. Because God forbid if these globalists have to put on pause their big global designs for taking over the world's population and forcing us all to eat fake lab meat and insects and not drive and not fly, but just look up at the skies and see them as they fly around in their private jets to go to the next event to tell us why we don't need to fly because of climate emissions and so forth, CO2 emissions. They want to accomplish this world vision they have, where they're at the top and the rest of us are just there to serve. And Donald Trump, once again, will bring into the White House, nope, America first. China, back in your box. Go on, take your little communist crap and run along now. Go on, go play with North Korea or, hook up with Russia. But take your little Klaus Schwab, Great Reset, China, communist, capitalistic, Great Reset policy and stick it, well, beep, beep, beep. So that's what they're afraid of happening. That Donald Trump, when he comes into office, not only is he going to bring the same America First principle and guiding compass with him, but he's going to come at it with a much more informed observation of how government works. He came into office without political experience, right? And he's a smart guy, he's a business guy, he's savvy and so forth, but he made mistakes, like all politicians make mistakes. Well, now he's armed with knowledge about who to bring into the White House with him, who to keep out, who, more importantly, to keep way out. So I think he has even more power that he's going to bring to the table in the White House in 2024. Enough power that not only will he push back and undo, as he did in 2016, 8 years of Barack Obama, but enough power to even expand that 8 years to 12 years, 16 years, 20 years. Who knows what Donald Trump could accomplish, armed as he is now, with a deep, deep first-hand understanding of the deep state in Washington, D.C., and a deep, deep understanding and knowledge of how to fight it effectively, and how to emerge from the fight still a winner. That's what the globalists, that's what the leftists fear about Donald Trump. It's not that they don't understand why Americans love Donald Trump. It's that they understand why Americans do love Donald Trump. And they're just frightened little pansies. Pink panty-wearing pansies about it. And they just can't suffer the idea of another 4 years of Donald Trump because they know it will unwind all their strategic plots to cripple and crumble American sovereignty and bring about their global designs for control for years and years and years to come. And I have a guest today here to talk not just about the stubborn support for Donald Trump that we continue to see, right? The ongoing stubborn support, but also what is going on with Fox News and Tucker, a little bit about that. And also look at the question, are we on America's last legs? I mean, when you have naked men riding bicycles in the streets at a pride parade in front of little kids, I don't know. Something's going on with the moral compass of America. Just saying. Anyhow, my guest today, the former Arkansas governor and former presidential candidate, Mike Huckabee. It is so great to have you back on Bold and Blunt. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, Cheryl, it's always a pleasure to visit with you, and I appreciate what you do in your writing. It's very important, I think, for people to follow Cheryl and keep up with what you're saying, because it's always worth reading.
Wow, that's so nice of you to say. Thank you. What a way to start the show. So there's a lot going on in America right now, least of which the coming elections and so forth. I just wanted to start the chat by getting your impression of the Republican candidates. I think there are something like 12 of them now.
There'll probably be more before it's all over. And yeah. I think there's 3 lanes that we're sort of watching develop. There's Donald Trump. There's the I'm not Donald Trump, but I'd like to be an alternative to him. And then there's the anti-Trump, the Asa Hutchinson and Chris Christie and that group. And within that other lane, the ones that want to be the alternative to Trump, there are those who are more or less taking him on and those who are just running their own race. But it's interesting, Cheryl, that no matter what happens to Trump, whether he's indicted, whether he's accused of something, his numbers keep going up. And interestingly, Ron DeSantis, who was considered the primary challenger to Trump, has actually dropped pretty precipitously in the last month. So it's really shaping up to be Trump versus somebody else, and that somebody else is yet to be determined.
And the Republican Party does have good candidates, but as you just rightly pointed out, even in the face of these indictments, Trump's numbers have gone up with his base just in the last week or so. I have my own views on what's going on here, but I'm interested in hearing from you why the determined, stubborn, rising support for Donald Trump.
I think people begin to understand that if what is happening to Donald Trump is allowed to continue, and if we allow it to cause us to either stop our support for Donald Trump, or he just decides, I'm not going to deal with this anymore, and for whatever reason he drops out, then Republicans are not stupid, and they understand that this now becomes the new template that will be used by the media and the left to go after every Republican candidate, whether it's Ron DeSantis or whether it's Christie or whether it's Nikki Haley. It doesn't matter. This is the new template that they will use, and people have to understand that if that happens, there aren't many people, I'm not sure anybody, I don't care who they are, can withstand the kind of pressure and headwinds that Donald Trump has withstood and still get out of bed every morning, get on his feet, and go back and fight back. So I believe what we're seeing, and I'm a Trump supporter, so let me be very clear and disclose on the front end. A lot of people have yet to make their pick, but I made mine shortly after he announced, because I feel like that he is one of only 2 candidates in the race, the other one being Vivek Ramaswamy, who are not in at least some way obligated to the donor class. And the donor class, to me, is what we ought to fear, because they really run the entire political show of America. And the reason Donald Trump is so hated, so despised by the establishment and the deep state, is because he does not go in already obligated and pretty much owned by the elitist donor class. And that's something that I hope people will think through very carefully. It's not that we don't have some great candidates, and we do. And I'll be very quick to tell you that if anyone else gets the nomination, whether Donald Trump decides not to continue or he can't, or somebody just flat out beats him, if that happens, I'll support them every day of the week and twice on Sunday. But having said that, the reason that I've cast my own lot politically with Donald Trump is because I feel like that we're at a crossroads in America where, as much as I would love to just elect somebody who has some great ideas and solutions and is diplomatic and kind and thoughtful, that's not going to work right now. If we don't have someone who goes in and says, we're going to clean out the FBI and the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security, we're going to get rid of the politicization of the IRS and the other alphabet agencies of Washington, then I don't know how many more birthdays this country is going to celebrate after we get this 247th one done next week.
You and I are in perfect agreement about Trump, and that's exactly why I support him as well. He names the globalist forces taking over America, and he takes them on so strong. And I think he's making that good case, what you just outlined, that if you attack Trump, you're actually attacking American principles. That's working for him. Just to pivot slightly to the role of media here, look at what's taken place on Fox News, though, which previously was strongly in Trump's camp. And now going forward, it looks like he has an enemy there. Tucker has been removed. Tucker's staff has been removed. You know Fox, and I don't want to put you in an awkward position, but how can you comment on what's going on?
Well, not to any large degree. First, because I just don't know. And secondly, I still make appearances on Fox, and I'm grateful for the experience and for the relationship. I'm not a paid contributor. I withdrew from that in order to do some other projects so that I wasn't obligated to just one network. Now I can appear on Newsmax and other organizations. But having said that, Hannity is still a strong Donald Trump supporter, probably Laura Ingraham. But you don't see many of the other hosts, and it does seem to be an overall attitude at the highest levels of the network, to not give Donald Trump the level of coverage that they once did. And I don't know if that's coming from Rupert Murdoch or one of the sons. That I simply do not know. But quite frankly, whether anyone likes it or not, Donald Trump is the force of nature that will determine the way this race goes. And, I just think people miss something. Sure, he has his moments where he says cringeworthy things, and we all understand the personality challenges. And I've said this to his face, so it's not something that I'm, just saying to you or coming up with new. I have a great relationship. I visited with him last Saturday night when I was in Washington for the Faith and Freedom Conference, and we had a great visit. But I'm all in to support him. And the reason is not because of personality. It's because of the principles of how he governs when it comes to the pro-life issue, which is a non-negotiable for me, when it comes to Israel, which is a non-negotiable for me. There's never been an American president who's better. But it's also on regulation, it's on taxation, it's on foreign policy. I saw him put together the Abraham Accords, which no one ever could have imagined, and bring a level of sort of a new attitude toward the Middle East that was greatly needed and was long overdue from the past 45 years. And then if you look at the fact that only he and Ronald Reagan in the past 50 years are the only two presidents that did not get America into a shooting war, even though everybody was convinced that both of them were cowboys that would push the red button at the first opportunity. Well, it was just the opposite. But give Donald Trump credit. He saved NATO by facing down these European deadbeat nations that weren't paying their, and let me use a Democrat term, fair share he embarrassed them into finally starting to pay their dues. That saved NATO. Otherwise, I'm not sure it would have continued to last, and certainly it was a paper tiger. If I look at all the things, I liken Donald Trump to the surgeon who maybe doesn't have the best bedside manner, but by gosh, if you've got a serious illness, that's who you want in the operating room working on you.
That's a really good analogy. And just to advance what you said about sometimes Donald Trump says things that appear offensive in many people's ears. I was on a panel at the same Faith and Freedom Coalition, and it was about faith in media, and Donald Trump got brought up. And I expected that some in the audience would be anti-Donald Trump because of what you just said, that sometimes he says things that are offensive. But the audience, by and large, was explosively for Donald Trump. And I wonder if maybe the evangelical community is awakening to the idea that it's not so much what Trump says and maybe he hurts somebody's feelings, but it's what he does. And this coming election will be strongly from the evangelical community for Donald Trump. Do you see it that way as well?
I absolutely do. There'll be some people in the evangelical community that'll say, we just can't stand sometimes maybe what is perceived as self-centeredness or focus upon himself or being abrasive when it's not necessary and attacking individuals. I understand that. But I was there when he spoke Saturday, and it was as extraordinary a level of support as I've seen ever. No one at that conference got anywhere near you used the term explosive, which I think is exactly correct. And here's what I think a lot of non-evangelicals don't understand. Nobody in the evangelical world, I'm a part of that, believes that Donald Trump is one of us. He sits on the front row of church and lifts his hands during praise and worship. None of us say that. I said in his presence, when I introduced him to 1,200 pastors in 2016 and was trying to bring pastors into support for him, I said it. He was 4 feet from me on the stage, and I said, folks, I'm not sure Donald Trump could find John 3:16 in a Mark New Testament, but we're not here in pretending that he's one of us, but he's one who believes that we ought to be left alone and that the government shouldn't come in and tell us how to worship, how to preach, how to think, how to sing, how to pray, and just leave us alone. That is why Donald Trump is so popular among evangelicals. No one, no president, not even Reagan, and I love Reagan, but not even Reagan did more to advance the cause of religious liberty, and it wasn't because he was advancing his own cause. It was because he truly embraced the constitutional understanding that government should not dictate to the church what it does and how it does it. And I just think that for many evangelicals, Donald Trump has represented a guy who is willing to say, we're not going to force churches to hire a transgender youth minister. We're not going to force Christian universities to put biological men in women's dorms. We're just not going to do that. And right now, the culture is in a fight for its life. And so this idea that we can be all sweet and kind and nice and sit down and have tea and crumpets with some of these crazy people on the far left, we're not there. We're fighting for whether or not this country is going to survive the insanity that we see parading down streets with grown men completely naked parading in front of small children, and drag queens telling stories to 6-year-olds, and people defending that as okay and normal. And people are looking at it and saying, no, it's not okay, it's not normal, and we're done with it.
Let's look at that, the culture, in just the last couple minutes we have, because honestly, I think you and I are also in agreement that the culture drives the politics and not just shows the moral compass of a nation, but the degradation that's taken place in America on its way to destruction. Where is the accountability for naked men parading in front of children nowadays? And do you see this as America's last legs?
It could be. If we don't have the course correction and we come to our senses and we continue to try to say that this is normal and this is just a matter of accepting everybody as they are, it is not. Children deserve to have some level of protection. And Cheryl, there's a reason that we don't let underage children buy liquor, tobacco, get tattoos without parents' permission. We don't let them join the military, get married, drive cars. There's a host of things they can't do. And why is it? It's because we don't love children? No, it's because we do love children. And we know that they're not mature enough to process some of these adult-level decisions. And now we're expected to believe that while a child really wouldn't know whether to get a tattoo or maybe even to take an aspirin at school, that it would be okay to keep from his or her parents that this biological boy comes to school, puts on a dress, and is pretending to be a girl and is going into the girls' locker room. And somebody's got to stand up and say, no. Parents are responsible for children, not government-funded schools. And it's not the business of any government entity to begin to intervene in a parental decision, and neither is it normal. As you mentioned, these naked men in the parades, that's indecent exposure. That's a crime. This is not something we're not celebrating anything except perversion and sickness, and we don't need to elevate it to the level of normalcy.
Which I think the Democrats are busily doing, and in many cases actually accomplished if you look at what's taking place in the public school systems. Just to finish up with this last question, if you're an American patriot right now and you are watching the landscape of America, the culture, the politics, the economy, everything, and you're becoming overwhelmed, how would you recommend best as an individual with a small platform, just one voice, how best to fight?
Well, I don't want to sound trite when I say they need to pray, because I do believe that what we're involved in now is not a political, it's not a socioeconomic, it's not an economic battle, it's a spiritual battle. So understand the nature of what we're dealing with. We're dealing with really evil versus good. This is not left, right, liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican. It truly has come to the place it's evil versus good. And we have to stand on the side of good. And we have to be prepared to be ridiculed and belittled, scorned, and given horrible names: transphobe, homophobe, racist, bigot. All of those are tools that the other side uses to try to cause us to just sit down, shut up, and go away. We have to stand up, speak up, and not go away, and show up every single day. But the fundamental thing, we've got to make sure that people of like mind register and vote. Don't let anything keep them from voting. Because I know people say, well, it doesn't matter whether I vote, it's not going to be counted right. Yes, it will be. And the only way that we can overcome some that try to cheat the election is to make sure that in greater numbers we show up, that no matter what cheating happens, they still don't have the numbers to beat us.
Yep, it all matters. From the littlest to the largest, it all matters. I really want to thank you, Mike Huckabee, for being back on Bold and Blunt, and thank you for the fight that you do on behalf of patriotic America, too. It's great the work you do, and I so appreciate you. Thank you.
Well, Cheryl, it's mutual. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to chat with you. I'm always ready to do it anytime.
Excellent. Governor Mike Huckabee, former governor of Arkansas, former presidential candidate. Mike Huckabee, great American patriot. Want to thank you for listening, and if you like Bold and Blunt, you may subscribe to Bold and Blunt at WashingtonTimes.com, at Edify.app, at Real Life Network, and through the new newsletter Washington Times offers, Higher Ground. You got to check that one out. It's all faith-based stuff. Thank you again for listening. Tune in next time, and in the meanwhile, stay blunt, stay bold.